Tonight you're watching Midnight Fatal Cases, a story about trust, and what can happen when the wrong person is invited into a home. This case isn't told for shock. It's told to remember the victim, to follow the facts, and to sit with the uncomfortable truth that some disappearances don't begin with violence. They begin with silence. If you're ready, turn the lights down. And let's begin. Chapter 1. The Hook. The elevator in Clara Bennett's building always smelled faintly of bleach and old raincoats. That night, it smelled like nothing at all, like the air had been scrubbed clean. Clara stood inside the narrow metal box with her suitcase pressed against her shin, watching the numbers blink upward with the slow patience of a machine that didn't care who was waiting. 7 days. That was all she'd been gone. A week of emails, conference rooms, hotel carpet, and forced smiles. A week of telling herself that a short trip would not change anything. A week of checking her phone at night to reread the last message she'd received from the woman she'd hired to watch her daughter. All good. She ate. She slept. Don't worry, Clara. Clara had repeated those words to herself on the flight home, as if repetition could turn them into a guarantee. The elevator jerked, then settled. The doors slid open to her floor. The corridor lights were dimmed to their nighttime setting, a soft amber that made every shadow longer. Her neighbors' doors were closed. No television glow under thresholds. No scent of cooking. No voices. The entire floor felt paused, as if the building itself was holding its breath. Clara walked to her door, fumbled with her keys, and heard something she hadn't noticed until that moment. Silence. Not the ordinary quiet of late hours, but a thicker silence. A silence without the small, predictable sounds of her life. No cartoon theme song drifting from the living room. No plastic toy clacking against tile. No tiny footsteps that always seemed to be moving even when her daughter was supposed to be asleep. No hum of the white noise machine Clara used for bedtime. Nothing. Her key turned with a dull click. She pushed the door open. The first thing she saw was the nightlight in the hallway still plugged in. It cast a weak blue crescent across the baseboards. That light had been chosen for one reason. It comforted Lily. Lily was 4, old enough to have strong opinions about socks and bedtime stories, old enough to ask questions that landed like pebbles in Clara's chest, questions about why Dad didn't come anymore, why Mommy had to work, why the world had rules that seemed to change depending on who was holding the power. Clara stepped inside, suitcase rolling behind her. The wheels made a soft rasp on the wood floor, and she winced as if she'd spoken too loudly in a place that demanded quiet. "Lily?" she called, keeping her voice light, casual. Like this was normal? Like she hadn't been counting hours on the flight. No answer. The apartment smelled faintly of detergent and something else. A sweetness almost, like air freshener used too heavily, the kind that tries to cover another odor but never quite succeeds. Clara set her suitcase upright and listened again. Nothing. She took off her coat and hung it on the hook by the door. The motion was automatic, practiced. Her hands wanted routine. Her mind wanted to believe routine would lead her to Lily's bedroom, where she would find a sleeping child curled around a stuffed rabbit with one ear permanently bent. Clara walked to the living room. The couch pillows were aligned. Too aligned. Clara did not align pillows. The coffee table was bare except for a single folded dish towel, clean, crisp, absurd in the middle of the room. On the TV stand, the remote sat perfectly centered. The screen was off. The floor was clean. Lily's floor was never clean. Clara stood there still holding her keys and tried to make the scene fit her memory. It didn't. It was as if someone had staged her life, a version of her home designed to look peaceful to an outsider, a version with no evidence of a child. She moved toward Lily's toy basket near the window. It was gone, not tipped over, not pushed aside. Gone. A shallow, cold sensation slid under Clara's ribs. She told herself it was fatigue. She told herself she was misremembering. She told herself that maybe the babysitter, no, the sitter wasn't a teenager. She was a woman, 30-something. Competent. Warm voice. References. A steady handshake. Her name was Paula. Clara walked down the hallway. The blue nightlight threw her shadow against the wall. It looked taller than she was, stretched and thin, like a stranger. Lily's bedroom door was half open. Clara paused. There was a moment, barely a heartbeat, when she expected to hear Lily's breathing. A soft exhale, a small sigh. Anything. She pushed the door wider. The bed was made. Not Lily made, meaning tangled and lumpy. Not Clara made, meaning hurried and imperfect. It was hotel made. Tight corners. Smoothed blanket. Pillow fluffed and centered. The stuffed rabbit was not on the bed. The mobile above the crib. Lily had outgrown the crib, but the mobile stayed, hung still, unmoving, as if it hadn't been disturbed in days. Clara's eyes jumped to the floor. No scattered books. No glitter stickers. No socks abandoned in protest. The small pink cup Lily drank water from at night was missing from the bedside table. Clara stood in the doorway and felt, with sudden certainty, that she had walked into the wrong apartment. She forced herself to move, to check closets, to open drawers, to look under the bed like a person in a hurry. The closet doors slid back to reveal neatly spaced hangers. Lily's jackets were there. Her tiny sneakers were lined up as if for display. But one thing was wrong. The yellow rain boots, Lily's favorite, the ones with the tiny ducks on the toes, were not there. Clara turned, fast, scanning the room for any sign of them, any sign of Lily. Nothing. Her heart started to beat harder, the kind of beat you feel in your throat. She walked back into the hallway and called again, louder. "Lily!" Still nothing. Clara pulled out her phone. Her fingers were clumsy, and she hated herself for that. She found Paula's number, the one saved under Paula Sitter, and pressed call. It rang. Once, twice, then straight to voicemail. Clara swallowed and called again. Voicemail. She checked her messages. The last text was from 2 days ago. She had been in a conference room when it came in. She remembered glancing at it during a presentation, seeing the smiling emoji at the end, and feeling a small, guilty relief. Lily's asleep now. Clara stared at that message until the screen dimmed. Then she turned and walked into the kitchen. The sink was empty. No dishes. No sippy cup. The counters were wiped down. A bowl of fruit sat in the center of the table like a photo from a magazine. Clara reached for the refrigerator handle and opened it. The fridge was stocked. Milk, eggs, vegetables. A carton of strawberry yogurt Lily liked. It was all too perfect. Too considerate. Clara's gaze landed on the calendar pinned to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a lighthouse. She had circled her travel dates in red. Under the week she'd been gone, there was a new note written in black ink, clean, careful letters. "Thank you." Clara blinked, confused. She hadn't written that. She reached up and touched the ink with the tip of her finger as if it might smear, as if it might reveal itself as some trick. It didn't move. Clara stood very still, listening again. In the distance outside the apartment, a car passed. Somewhere below, a door shut. Ordinary sounds. The world continuing. Her world inside these walls had stopped. She walked back to the front door and looked down at the welcome mat. It was the same faded mat she'd owned for years, the one that said, "Hello" in peeling white letters. Something small sat on it, placed with care. A single hair clip. Pink plastic. The kind shaped like a tiny butterfly. Lily's. Clara picked it up and felt her fingers tighten around it. The clip was warm, as if it had been held recently, or as if her hand was burning. She looked into the hallway outside her door. Empty. She stepped out anyway, leaving the apartment door open behind her, and listened. The building's air conditioner breathed quietly through vents. Pipes clicked in the walls. Nothing else. Clara walked to the opposite door, Mrs. Hargreaves, the elderly neighbor who sometimes waved at Lily, who sometimes complained about noise but always smiled afterward. Clara knocked. No answer. She knocked again, harder. A pause. Then shuffling. A chain sliding. The door cracked open. Mrs. Hargreaves's eyes were pale and startled, the eyes of someone woken from sleep. "Clara," she whispered. "Is everything all right?" Clara heard how thin her own voice sounded. "Have you seen Lily?" she asked. "Have you seen Paula? The woman staying with her?" Mrs. Hargreaves opened the door a little wider. Her robe hung loosely, and her hair was pressed flat on one side. She looked past Clara into the empty hallway, as if expecting to see a child behind her. I thought you came back yesterday, Mrs. Hargreaves said. Clara felt her stomach drop. No, she said. I came back tonight. Just now. Lily isn't. She's not inside. Mrs. Hargreaves' mouth tightened. Her gaze flicked toward Clara's open door. I heard footsteps earlier, she said slowly. This afternoon. And there was a man. I assumed he was with you. A man? Clara repeated. Her mind tried to catch up, tried to form an image. What did he look like? Mrs. Hargreaves hesitated as if the memory was slippery. Tall, she said. Dark jacket. He carried something. A bag, maybe. I didn't pay attention. She shook her head, frustrated. I'm sorry. I didn't think... Clara felt the hair clip dig into her palm. She forced herself to breathe. What time? She asked. Mrs. Hargreaves glanced at the small clock inside her apartment, as if checking even now. About 3, she said. Maybe a little after. Clara's phone read 11:47 p.m. Almost 9 hours. Clara thanked her without hearing her own words. She stepped back into her apartment, closed the door, and locked it with hands that now shook visibly. She stood in the hallway again, the blue nightlight washing her feet in cold color. A thought came, sharp and unwanted. This is what happens when you leave. Clara pushed the thought away. It felt like blame, and she didn't have time for blame. She had time only for action. She called Paula again. Voicemail. She called the building manager. No answer. She opened her laptop on the kitchen table and pulled up the email chain from the child care agency. Paula had not been a random contact. She had been vetted. Background check. References. A trusted professional. Clara read the agency's reassuring phrases with new eyes, each one suddenly hollow. She looked for the emergency contact number. She found it. She dialed. A recorded message answered, cheerful and useless. Our offices are currently closed. Clara stared at the phone as if it had betrayed her. Then she did the thing people do when fear becomes too large to carry alone. She called the police. While the line rang, she walked through the apartment again, slower this time, looking not for Lily, but for proof that Lily had been here at all in the last 7 days. The toothbrush in the bathroom cup, Lily's blue toothbrush, was dry. The small towel with cartoon whales was gone from its hook. In the laundry basket, Clara found folded clothes. Lily's pajamas neatly stacked, clean, unworn. A soft knock came from inside the apartment. Clara froze. The knock came again. Not from the front door, from the bedroom wall. A sound so faint it could have been pipes or settling wood. Clara turned, staring down the hallway toward Lily's room. The apartment held its breath with her. Then the dispatcher picked up. Emergency services, a calm voice said. What is your location? Clara opened her mouth. And for the first time since stepping out of the elevator, she heard herself say the words out loud, like a confession, like an alarm. My daughter is missing. There was a pause on the line, the dispatcher's training shifting into a new gear. Okay, the dispatcher said. Tell me your daughter's name. How old is she? And when did you last see her? Clara looked at the perfectly made bed, at the empty toy basket, at the single butterfly clip in her hand. She realized she didn't know where to begin. Because somewhere, between the red circle on the fridge calendar and the word "thank you" written beneath it, her life had been rearranged. And Lily had been removed. Not by accident, not by a mistake, but by someone who had taken the time to make the apartment look like nothing had ever happened. Someone who had made sure there would be no obvious mess to follow. Someone who had understood that silence can be the most terrifying sound in the world. Chapter 2. Context and People. Before the missing person report, before the patrol cars and the clipped questions, Clara's life had been built out of compromises so ordinary they almost passed as choices. She lived in a mid-rise apartment on the edge of a financial district, close enough to walk to the office when trains were delayed, far enough that rent didn't swallow her whole. Her job, risk compliance for an international shipping firm, was the kind of work people joked about at dinner parties. It sounded abstract: numbers, policies, audits. But it paid steadily, and steady had become a kind of religion after her marriage collapsed. Clara wasn't the sort of mother who forgot her child in the back seat. She didn't party. She didn't vanish for weekends. She kept receipts. She labeled storage bins. She kept Lily's medical records in a folder with color-coded tabs. But she also lived in a system that punished mothers for needing anything beyond endurance. 2 years earlier, when Lily was still learning to pronounce certain consonants, Clara had watched her husband, Ethan, pack a suitcase in the same bedroom where Lily now slept. He did it quietly, almost politely. The argument that led to it had not been explosive. It had been worse, slow, exhausted, full of sentences like, "I can't do this anymore and you're always working." Ethan wanted a family that ran on instinct, not schedules. Clara wanted a family that ran at all. The divorce was civil on paper and brutal in practice. Ethan moved across town and started a new routine with a woman he called a friend. He took Lily every other weekend sometimes when work didn't get in the way. He paid child support with the detached punctuality of a man paying a bill. He texted Clara about logistics, not feelings. If Clara tried to talk about Lily's nightmares or her sudden fear of closed doors, Ethan's replies shortened. "Kids go through phases. Stop overthinking. You're making it worse." Clara learned to stop asking. She also learned to patch the holes with professional help. A daycare during work hours, a neighbor for emergencies, an occasional paid sitter for nights when deadlines didn't respect bedtime. It wasn't ideal. It was survival. When the company announced a mandatory conference in Lisbon, 3 presentations, 1 regulatory panel, and a dinner with clients, Clara felt the familiar pressure rise behind her eyes. She tried to negotiate remote attendance. Her supervisor, Martin Geller, spoke gently, the way people speak when they are refusing you. "I know it's hard," he said, "but your presence matters. We need you there." The unspoken part was clear. In Clara's position, absence was noticed. Absence became a story, and stories turned into reasons. Clara called Ethan first. She told herself she was being mature, that co-parents should share the weight. Ethan listened, silent, and then exhaled like she'd asked him to carry a refrigerator. "A whole week?" he said. "Yes," Clara replied. "I can arrange drop-off. Pick up. I'll send everything. I've got a project," Ethan said. "I'm traveling too." Clara felt heat bloom in her throat. "You didn't mention—" "Because it's not your business," Ethan snapped, then softened his tone like he was flicking a switch. "Look, I can do 2 nights. Maybe. But a week?" "Clara, be realistic. Realistic. As if motherhood were a hobby she could schedule around other people's priorities." Clara didn't argue. Arguing with Ethan always ended with Clara apologizing for needing something. Instead, she opened her laptop and did what she always did when no one came through for her. She found a service. The agency's website was bright and calm, full of stock photos, smiling caregivers, children painting, hands holding hands. Their slogans promised peace of mind. Their testimonials sounded rehearsed but comforting. Clara read every line of the FAQ as if it were a contract with the universe. Background checks. Verified references. Certified professionals. Emergency support line. Full transparency. She called. She spoke to a coordinator named Sheila Morgan with a voice like warm tea. Sheila asked about Lily's allergies, bedtime rituals, whether Clara had pets. Sheila sounded competent. Sheila sounded like someone who had heard every anxious question and still had an answer ready. "We have a caregiver who's perfect for long stays," Sheila said. "Her name is Paula Hart. She does overnight support. Former early years assistant. Excellent with transitional anxiety." Transitional anxiety. The phrase landed uncomfortably because it was true. Lily had become clingier after Ethan left. She slept with one hand curled into Clara's shirt. She asked where Clara was going even when Clara was only stepping into the hallway to take out trash. She developed a habit of checking the lock on the front door, watching Clara's hands, memorizing the ritual. Clara hated herself for it, but she found relief in the idea that a professional could handle what her own exhaustion sometimes couldn't. Paula came to the apartment for an interview 3 days before the trip. Clara remembered the first impression clearly because it had felt like relief. Paula was clean-cut, hair tied back, nails short and tidy. She wore a simple gray sweater and carried a tote bag with a children's book peeking out of the top, like a deliberate signal. Her smile was practiced, not fake, controlled. The kind of smile you gave customers and frightened children. She crouched to Lily's level, didn't touch her, didn't rush her. "Hi, Lily," Paula said. "I'm Paula. Your mom tells me you like stories." Lily didn't answer. She hid behind Clara's leg and peeked out with one eye. Paula didn't push. "That's okay. I'm shy too sometimes." Clara watched for red flags the way she watched for oncoming cars. She listened to Paula's voice, her word choices, the way she glanced around the apartment as if memorizing it. Paula asked questions that sounded responsible. "Where are the smoke alarms? Is there a neighbor with a spare key? What's Lily's pediatrician's name? Does Lily have any fears I should know about?" Clara answered, relieved by the order of it. This was a woman with systems, with caution, with rules. At one point, Clara went to the kitchen to pour water. When she came back, Paula and Lily were sitting on the rug, a picture book open between them. Lily's finger traced the illustrations. Paula kept her hands in her lap, letting Lily control distance. It looked safe. Clara felt tears threaten behind her eyes, not from sadness, but from the strange tenderness of seeing her child calm with someone else. It felt like permission to breathe. After Paula left, Clara called two of the references the agency provided. One was a couple, David and Monique, who said Paula had watched their son during a hospital stay. They described Paula as steady, unflappable, a godsend. Another reference was a single father named Jerome, who said Paula had been with his daughter during a custody transition. He said she was firm but kind. Clara heard what she wanted to hear. She signed the contract. She paid extra for overnight coverage. She typed out a multi-page document titled Lily Week Routine, with lists and bullet points and the kind of detail that made Clara feel like she was building a bridge across her own absence. Morning. Oatmeal, half a banana, no cinnamon. School drop-off, 8:25, speak to Ms. Pennington if Lily seems withdrawn. Bath, warm, not hot. Lily hates the sound of the drain. Night, 2 stories. The rabbit always sleeps on the left. She printed it and put it on the fridge. Paula read it carefully, nodded, and said, "This is very helpful. You're a good mother." Clara held on to that sentence like it was proof. The day Clara left, she woke Lily before dawn. Lily's hair was a soft mess, her cheeks warm with sleep. Clara dressed her in a yellow sweatshirt and leggings. She made a small show of normalcy, toast, strawberries, the same cartoon humming from the TV. Paula arrived at 6:30, exactly on time, and brought a small paper bag with a sticker on it, craft supplies. "For later," she said, and Lily's eyes widened with cautious interest. Clara crouched in front of Lily and kissed her forehead. "Mommy's going to work," she said. "I'm coming back in 7 sleeps." Lily held up 7 fingers, then dropped 2, then frowned. "In 1 week," Clara corrected softly. Lily's mouth trembled. She grabbed Clara's sleeve. "Don't go." Clara felt the familiar tear in her chest, the rip between duty and desire. She looked at Paula, who nodded gently, as if to say, "I've got this." Clara pried Lily's fingers loose with slow care. She hugged her again. She inhaled Lily's hair, the scent of shampoo and child warmth. "I'll call every night," Clara promised. She left before she could change her mind. In Lisbon, the days blurred together. The hotel room was clean and anonymous. The conference hall smelled of coffee and carpet glue. Clara stood under bright lights and spoke into microphones, her voice professional, her heart split. At night, she called. The first night, Lily cried on the phone and begged Clara to come home. Paula's voice came on afterward, calm, reporting details like a nurse. Lily ate her dinner. She had a bath. She's settling. The second night, Lily didn't want to talk long. She said she made a picture. She said Paula read a story about a bear. She sounded tired, not distressed. By the third night, Lily sounded different. Not happy. Not unhappy. Flat. Clara asked, "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Lily paused. Then she whispered, "Paula says I'm being good." Clara laughed softly, trying to make it a compliment. "You are good." Lily didn't respond. Clara heard a faint sound in the background. Music, maybe. Or a TV turned low. Then Paula took the phone and said, "She's a little emotional tonight." "She misses you." Clara wanted to ask why Lily sounded like she was repeating lines. She wanted to ask why the room seemed quiet in a way that made Clara's skin tighten. But Clara was trained, by years of balancing other people's comfort, to doubt herself first. On the fourth day, Clara received the text, "Lily's asleep now." It felt reassuring. It also felt like an ending. Clara replied with a heart emoji and a thank you. She told herself not to be needy. She told herself not to hover. That was the bargain she made. She would hand over trust in exchange for a week of stability. On the sixth day, she tried to call and got no answer. She told herself Lily was asleep early. She told herself Paula was bathing her. She told herself it was fine. She went to the panel dinner and smiled when clients spoke to her. She laughed at jokes she didn't hear. Back in her hotel room, she called again. Voicemail. She slept badly. On the flight home, turbulence rattled the cup on her tray table. Clara stared at the message thread with Paula and watched the last seen time that never updated. She drafted a text, "Are you okay?" then erased it. She drafted another, "Please call me when you can," then erased that too. She told herself not to be the kind of mother who treats a caregiver like an employee under interrogation. She told herself professionalism meant restraint. She told herself she would handle it the moment she got home. And beneath all those sensible thoughts was the quiet, stubborn truth Clara didn't want to name. She had noticed the small wrongness. She had simply needed it to be nothing. Duxer, Chapter 3, Escalation. The first patrol car arrived 12 minutes after Clara hung up with the dispatcher. Those 12 minutes stretched into something elastic and unreal. Clara paced the apartment with her phone pressed to her chest, walking the same narrow paths again and again, as if repetition might summon Lily back into existence. She opened doors she had already opened. She checked locks she knew were secure. She stood in Lily's doorway and stared at the bed until her eyes burned. When the knock finally came, it sounded too loud, too official. 2 officers stood in the hallway. One older, one younger. Their posture was careful, controlled. The older one spoke first, introducing himself as Officer Daniel Reeves. He asked permission to enter. Clara nodded and stepped aside. They didn't rush. They never rushed. They took in the apartment the way professionals do, quietly, methodically, noticing what didn't belong as much as what did. Officer Reeves asked Clara to sit at the kitchen table. The younger officer, Officer Mark Liu, remained standing, hands folded in front of him, eyes moving. "Tell me exactly what happened," Reeves said. So Clara did. She told the story the way it lived in her head. The trip, the sitter, the return, the silence. She described Lily with the precision of a mother afraid of being vague. Age, height, hair color, favorite shoes, the yellow rain boots. Reeves wrote everything down. He didn't interrupt. When Clara paused, he waited. "Do you have a recent photo?" he asked. Clara's hands shook as she unlocked her phone. She scrolled through pictures. Lily at the park, Lily with strawberry juice on her chin, Lily asleep with the rabbit tucked under her arm. She handed the phone over. Officer Liu leaned in to look. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "When did you last physically see your daughter?" Reeves asked. Clara swallowed. 6 days ago. The morning I left," Reeves nodded. "And the caregiver? Paula Hart. How did you find her?" Clara explained the agency, the interview, the references. As she spoke, the words sounded thinner, less convincing. She heard how much of her trust had been borrowed. "Do you have her full information?" Liu asked. "Address. ED copy. Anything?" Clara gestured toward the desk. "I have the contract." And the agency email. Liu moved to retrieve it. Reeves stayed seated, his voice steady. "Has Paula ever taken Lily out overnight before?" "No," Clara said quickly. "They went to the park. To school. But never overnight." "Did she mention anyone else? Friends? Family? Anyone who might have been around your daughter?" Clara shook her head. "No." Reeves exchanged a look with Liu. Not alarmed. Not yet. Just calibrated. They asked Clara to walk them through the apartment. They noted the made bed, the missing toys, the cleanliness that didn't match a 4-year-old's habits. "This looks staged," Liu said quietly, not to Clara, but to Reeves. Clara flinched anyway. They asked about neighbors. Clara mentioned Mrs. Hargreaves and the man she had seen. Reeves wrote that down too. At 12:36 a.m., more officers arrived. Then a supervisor. Then a woman in plain clothes who introduced herself as Detective Laura Mitchell. Mitchell was calm in a way that felt heavier than panic. She had tired eyes and a voice that suggested she had said these sentences many times before. "We're treating this as a missing child case," Mitchell said. "That means we move quickly but carefully. Carefully." The word landed wrong. Mitchell asked Clara to repeat everything again, this time slower. Dates. Times. Exact wording of messages. She asked to see the text from 2 days ago. She took photos of the calendar, the thank you note, the hair clip. "Did Paula ever write notes before?" Mitchell asked. "No," Clara said. "Never." Mitchell stared at the handwriting. "It's deliberate," she said. She wanted it seen. That night blurred into morning. Uniforms came and went. The apartment filled with quiet motion. Someone photographed Lily's room from every angle. Someone else dusted for prints. Clara signed forms she didn't read. At 3:14 a.m., the agency was contacted. At 3:47 a.m., Clara called Ethan. He answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. "Lily is missing," Clara said. There was a long silence on the line. "What do you mean missing?" Ethan asked. "She's gone," Clara said. "She was with the sitter." "Paula. I came home and she wasn't here." Ethan swore. He asked questions Clara couldn't answer. He said he was getting dressed. He said he was coming over. When he arrived, he looked around the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. He hugged Clara awkwardly, then pulled away, his eyes already searching for explanations. "This doesn't make sense," he said. "Why would you leave her with someone you don't really know?" The words hit Clara like a physical blow. Detective Mitchell cut in smoothly. "Now isn't the time," but the damage was done. Guilt flooded Clara in hot, choking waves. By morning, Lily's face was on every screen in the precinct. By noon, it was on local news. By evening, Clara's phone would not stop ringing. But before all of that, before the press, before the speculation, there was the agency. Sheila Morgan arrived at the apartment just after sunrise, eyes wide, hair hastily pulled back. She looked genuinely shaken. She apologized repeatedly. She said this had never happened before. "We ran all the checks," Sheila insisted. Paula was vetted. "She worked with us for 3 years. Detective Mitchell asked for Paula's file." That was when the first crack appeared. The address on Paula's file led to a rented room in a shared house across town. When officers arrived there, the room was empty. The bed was stripped. The closet was bare. No personal photos. No keepsakes. No indication that anyone had lived there longer than necessary. The landlord said Paula paid in cash. She kept to herself. She moved in 8 months ago. She gave notice 2 weeks prior. She said she was relocating, the landlord said. Relocating. The agency's background check confirmed Paula Hart was a real name. But it wasn't her first. Her fingerprints, run through the system by mid-afternoon, told a different story. Paula Hart did not exist before 5 years ago. Before that, she had been someone else, and someone else before that, each identity clean enough to pass casual scrutiny, each job short-term, each exit quiet. Detective Mitchell stood in the hallway outside Clara's apartment and made the call that shifted the tone of the case. "This isn't negligence," she said into her phone. "This is planning." By the second night, search teams were deployed. Posters went up. Tips poured in. Most were nothing. One tip mentioned a woman and a child at a bus station that afternoon. Another mentioned a man carrying a bag. None led anywhere. Clara sat on Lily's bed that night, holding the stuffed rabbit. She pressed her face into its worn fabric and breathed until the tears stopped coming. She replayed every conversation with Paula, every smile, every calm reassurance. She remembered Lily's flat voice on the phone. "Paula says I'm being good." Clara finally understood what that meant. Good meant quiet. Good meant compliant. Good meant invisible. And somewhere out there, someone had taken her daughter not in a moment of chaos, but in silence. With intention. Chapter 4. The Turning Point. By the third day, Clara stopped measuring time in hours. She measured it in phone vibrations, in the sound of the front door downstairs opening and closing, in the way Detective Mitchell's expression tightened when she stepped into the hallway to take a call. Clara hadn't slept. Not really. She would sit on the couch with Lily's rabbit in her lap, drift for a few minutes, then wake with her heart hammering, convinced she had heard Lily whisper her name. The apartment had turned into a museum of absence. Every object felt too sharp. Every silence felt like a decision. Detective Mitchell kept her team moving. She asked for surveillance footage. She asked for door access logs. She asked for the agency's internal records, not the polished summaries, but the raw files, timestamps, payments, onboarding documents. The building security system, it turned out, was both helpful and humiliating. Helpful because there were cameras. Humiliating because the cameras showed, with cold clarity, what Clara had not been there to see. On the afternoon Mrs. Hargreaves mentioned, just after 3, Paula left the building through the front lobby. The video was grainy and slightly washed out, but the shapes were unmistakable. An adult woman in a dark coat, a small child beside her, a tote bag hanging from Paula's shoulder. Lily. Detective Mitchell didn't show Clara immediately. She watched it first with Officer Liu, then with another detective Clara hadn't met. They rewound it. They slowed it. They watched Lily's face. Then, only when they had done everything they could to prepare themselves, they invited Clara to the precinct. Ethan insisted on driving her. He didn't ask. He just took her keys from the counter and said, "Come on." His voice had lost its sharpness. His anger for the moment had been swallowed by the scale of what was happening. The precinct's waiting room smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. Clara sat in a hard chair under fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick. A television in the corner played muted news coverage, Lily's photo on the screen, the words, "Missing Child" in a banner across the bottom. Clara stared at the floor until Detective Mitchell appeared. "We have footage," Mitchell said. Clara's throat tightened. "You found her?" Mitchell didn't answer with words. She only gestured for Clara to follow. The viewing room was small, windowless, with a desk, a monitor, and chairs arranged like a courtroom without the ceremony. Mitchell shut the door. Officer Liu stood near the wall, arms crossed. Ethan stayed behind Clara, close enough that she could feel his presence, not comforting exactly, but solid. Mitchell sat down and turned the monitor slightly. "Before you watch," she said, voice gentle but firm, "I want you to understand something. This may be difficult, but it's information. It helps us narrow time and movement. It helps us find her." Clara nodded too quickly. Her hands were already numb. Mitchell pressed play. The screen showed the lobby. The timestamp in the corner read 14:58:12. Paula entered frame first, moving with the calm pace of someone running an ordinary errand. She held the tote bag. Her hair was pulled back. Her posture was straight. She looked disturbingly, like exactly what she had sold herself as. And then Lily came into view. Clara's breath caught. Lily wore a pale yellow rain jacket. Not the sweatshirt Clara remembered from leaving day. This was different. The hood was down. Her hair was brushed. She was holding the rabbit, its bent ear visible against her chest. On her feet were the yellow duck rain boots. Lily's favorite. Lily walked beside Paula with small, careful steps. She was not being dragged. She was not stumbling. She wasn't crying. She looked quiet. Mitchell paused the video for a moment. Clara heard herself make a small sound, half a sob, half a gasp. "She's alive," Ethan whispered behind her, as if afraid that saying it too loudly would break it. Mitchell pressed play again. Paula and Lily crossed the lobby toward the door. They slowed near the entrance as if waiting for something. Paula glanced at her watch. Then a man appeared outside the glass doors. Tall, dark jacket, a cap pulled low. He carried a duffel bag in one hand. He didn't rush. He didn't look around wildly. He didn't behave like someone improvising. He behaved like someone arriving at a scheduled time. Paula opened the door. The man stepped inside. He spoke to Paula briefly. No audio, just a tilt of his head and a few words Clara could not hear. And then, with a movement so normal it was almost unbearable, the man crouched down to Lily's height. He offered his hand. Lily hesitated. Just for a second. Clara saw it. A tiny pause, the way Lily paused when a stranger greeted her at the park. Paula leaned toward Lily. She said something, her mouth moving in a short sentence. Lily looked up at Paula. Then Lily placed her small hand into the man's. Clara's body jerked forward as if she could reach into the screen. "No," she whispered. The man stood. He held Lily's hand. Paula adjusted the tote bag, then nodded. The three of them walked out of the building together. At the edge of the frame, a white van idled at the curb. No markings. No company logo. Just an ordinary vehicle you would never remember unless you were forced to. The man guided Lily toward the passenger side sliding door. Paula opened it. The interior was shadowed. Lily stepped in. Paula climbed in after her. The door closed. The van pulled away. Mitchell stopped the video. The room held a dead quiet. Clara stared at the blank screen, her eyes refusing to move, refusing to blink, as if blinking would erase the last proof of Lily's existence. Ethan's hand landed on Clara's shoulder. It was heavy. It trembled. Clara turned her head slowly, as if she had aged years in the space of 30 seconds. "She went with them," Clara said. Her voice sounded flat like Lily's on the phone. She took his hand." Mitchell nodded. "That's what the video shows." Clara shook her head, small and frantic. But she wouldn't. She wouldn't go with a man she didn't know. Mitchell didn't contradict her. She only said, children can be coached. They can be reassured. They can be told a story that makes sense to them. A story. Clara felt nausea rise. Paula had not needed force. Not on camera. Not in the lobby. Paula had needed trust. Lily's trust. Clara's trust. Mitchell rewound the clip again, slower this time, pointing out details. Paula glanced at her watch. The man arrived within seconds, not minutes. Coordinated. The duffel bag. Large enough to carry clothing. Supplies. A child's backpack. Or something worse. But Mitchell didn't say that word, and Clara didn't allow her mind to either. Lily's rabbit. Lily had been allowed to bring it. Allowed. Clara clutched the edge of the desk until her knuckles whitened. "Why take the rabbit?" Mitchell's voice softened. "Because it keeps her calm. Because it makes her easier to move." Clara swallowed hard. That rabbit had been her own idea of comfort. Her own small anchor for Lily. And now it was being used as a tool. A tool. Mitchell turned off the monitor. "We've circulated stills of the man in the van. We're pulling traffic cameras in a radius. We're checking bus and rail stations. We're working with other jurisdictions." Clara stared at Mitchell. "And Paula? Who is she?" Mitchell hesitated, and Clara understood that the next sentence would change the shape of everything. "We matched her fingerprints to an older case," Mitchell said. "Not in this state." Another city. Different name. Similar pattern. Ethan's voice sharpened. "Pattern?" Mitchell chose her words with care. "A caregiver profile. Short-term placements. Families under stress. Single parents. Travel. The caregiver disappears. The child is missing. Sometimes the child is found later. Sometimes they aren't." Clara's vision narrowed. "Found where?" Mitchell didn't answer immediately. Her eyes held Clara's, steady, direct, not cruel, but unflinching. "Not here," she said quietly. "Not quickly." Clara felt something inside her shift. Not shatter. Shattering implied release. This was worse. This was the slow, irreversible settling of a truth into place. Paula wasn't a mistake. Paula wasn't a misunderstanding. Paula was a method. The turning point wasn't the footage itself. It was what the footage proved. Lily didn't disappear into chaos. She was guided out. Prepared. Dressed. Given her rabbit. Put in her boots. Told a story that made her cooperate. Clara remembered Lily's whisper on the phone. "Paula says I'm being good." Now Clara could see the full shape of that sentence. Good meant smiling when you were scared. Good meant holding the hand you were told to hold. Good meant not calling for your mother even when your mother was only a plane ride away. Clara's stomach clenched. She looked at Ethan. His face had gone rigid, his eyes wet but furious, as if rage was the only thing keeping him upright. "This is on you," Ethan said suddenly, voice low. Not to punish. Not as an argument. As a raw animal reflex, a desperate need to put blame somewhere that wasn't fate. Clara didn't answer. She couldn't. Blame was a luxury. It required distance. Clara was inside the fire. Mitchell stepped between them with her voice. "Listen to me, both of you. We can spend weeks tearing each other apart, or we can focus on what matters. We need every detail you can remember about Paula. Every phrase, every habit, every inconsistency." Clara tried to think. She saw Paula's careful smile. She heard her warm voice. "You're a good mother." Clara's throat tightened. "She said things," Clara murmured. "Like she knew what I needed to hear." Mitchell nodded once. "That's how people like this operate. They study. They reflect. They become what you trust, people like this." Clara felt the phrase settle in her bones. Mitchell slid a notepad across the desk. "Start from the first contact. Describe her. Anything at all. Even if it feels small." Clara picked up the pen. Her fingers were clumsy. The ink looked too dark against the white paper. She began to write. And as she wrote, she understood the true horror of what had happened. This wasn't a monster in the dark, a stranger in an alley. This was a monster who sat on her living room rug, turned the pages of a picture book, and waited for Clara to leave the room. A monster who learned the sound of Lily's laugh. A monster who knew which socks Lily hated. A monster who thanked Clara on the refrigerator calendar in neat black ink, like an employee finishing a shift. The video had given the case a direction, but it had also given Clara something else. A new kind of fear. The kind that comes when you realize the worst people don't always break into your life. Sometimes you invite them in, and they walk out holding your child's hand, while the world keeps turning, and no one screams. Donor Chapter 5, Fallout and Discovery. The search did not feel like action to Clara. It felt like noise. Meetings in rooms that smelled of toner. Volunteers with vests and clipboards. Reporters speaking softly and still sounding hungry. Detective Mitchell kept repeating the same line, like a command meant to bend time. Every minute matters, but minutes passed anyway. The case became public fast. Lily's photo spread across screens. Strangers offered prayers, then opinions. Clara stopped reading. Each new message felt like another hand inside her home, moving things around, taking pieces. At the precinct, Mitchell's team rebuilt the last week through data. They pulled building access logs. Paula's last keycard entry, 2:41 p.m. Last exit, 3:01 p.m. The rest of the building flowed around that gap like nothing had happened. People came home. People ordered dinner. People walked dogs. Life kept its rhythm while Clara's collapsed. They pulled phone records for Paula's number. Prepaid. Cash. Activated under a false name, used mostly to contact Clara and the agency, but it also called one other number. Short bursts, frequent, like check-ins. That second number pinged towers along the interstate. Mitchell showed Clara a map with red dots marching outward. "It's movement," Mitchell said. "Not a destination." Clara stared at the dots and felt distance turn into a physical thing. Traffic cameras caught the white van again and again, then lost it at 3:38 p.m., in a blind spot between jurisdictions. From there, Mitchell's team chased fragments, toll booths, convenience stores, private security systems that recorded everything and remembered nothing for long. The world, Clara learned, is not built to keep evidence. It's built to overwrite. The agency was searched within days. Sheila Morgan arrived pale and shaking, insisting Paula had been vetted. Mitchell asked for raw onboarding files. In Paula's folder, there were gaps that didn't scream, but they whispered. An ID copy that looked too new to be old. Reference numbers that led nowhere when rechecked. Employment notes that read like a script. Someone had built credibility as a weapon. Not just to fool Clara, to fool a whole system designed to trust paperwork. By the second week, tips changed shape. Fewer frantic sightings, more small, stubborn details. A motel clerk remembered a white van that left before dawn. A cashier remembered children's medicine and crayons. A bus driver remembered a woman and a man with a cap, and a little girl with yellow duck rain boots. Not proof, but pattern. Then, on day 13, they found something real. A rental company confirmed a white cargo van, rented under Paula's name, returned at a drop box 2 days after Lily vanished. The odometer showed nearly 900 miles. The interior had been cleaned so thoroughly it felt deliberate. Cleaning doesn't erase everything. Forensics pulled fibers from seat seams, found a child's hair tangled in Velcro, a dried smear of strawberry yogurt near the sliding door. Beneath the passenger seat, a glittery star sticker. The kind Lily loved. Mitchell held the evidence bag up for Clara to see through plastic. It's something, Mitchell said quietly. Something was not Lily. But something meant Lily had been there. Something meant a trail existed, even if it was thin. The drop box sat near an industrial strip, storage facilities, cheap motels, shipping yards, places built for temporary use, places that didn't ask why. Mitchell widened the net and pulled in outside support. A federal liaison talked about similar cases in other states. Same structure, same patients. A caregiver profile that embedded, then disappeared. Clara asked what happened to the children in those cases. Mitchell did not decorate the truth. Sometimes they're recovered, she said. Sometimes we only find what was left behind. On day 21, Mitchell called Clara with a new tone in her voice. We have a location, she said. Not Lily. A location connected to Paula. I need you to identify items if we find them. The storage facility was 2 counties away, a gravel lot lined with metal doors like shut mouths. Officers stood around one unit. Mitchell looked Clara in the eyes before the lock was cut. You need to be prepared, she said. It may be nothing. It may be hard. The door rattled up. Inside were boxes and plastic tubs. A folded stroller. A stack of children's books tied with twine. Then Clara saw the details. The pink cup with cartoon whales. The pajamas with faded stars. A daycare backpack Clara could recognize in the dark. That's hers, Clara whispered. That's Lily's. Mitchell didn't let Clara touch. Photos first. Gloves. Tweezers. Evidence bags. On a low shelf in the back sat the stuffed rabbit, its bent ear still bent. Clara's knees weakened. She made a sound that wasn't language. Ethan turned away, hands on his head, as if the air had become too sharp to breathe. Mitchell spoke in a voice meant to hold the room together. We believe this was a staging area, she said. Items removed from your apartment. Items kept to control her comfort, to keep her quiet. They found other things, too. A small shoe that wasn't Lily's size. A baby blanket with a stitched name Clara didn't recognize. A photo of another toddler smiling under studio lights. In the corner, behind a tub, an officer found a notebook. Inside were lists in neat handwriting, routines, allergies, school names, parent schedules. Not only Clara's. Mitchell closed the notebook like it could bite. This isn't one child, she said. Clara felt the ground slip under her. All this time she had been thinking in singular. My daughter. My mistake. My life. The storage unit forced a different truth into the open. There were other lives stacked in boxes, too. Other parents who had trusted. Other children who had been taught to be good. As they drove away, Clara looked back at the rows of doors, each one identical, each one capable of hiding anything. She had come hoping to find Lily. Instead, she had found proof that Lily's disappearance wasn't a moment of chaos. It was a system, and systems don't stop on their own. Chapter 6. The ending. Clara did not go back to the apartment for 3 nights. She stayed in a small hotel near the precinct because the hallway of her building had started to feel like a tunnel. Every time she pictured the elevator doors opening, she saw Lily's boots stepping out, and then, impossibly, not stepping out. She needed walls that didn't carry Lily's echo. The storage unit changed the case in the eyes of law enforcement. It also changed it inside Clara, in a quieter, more poisonous way. Until then, some part of her had been bargaining with reality. Maybe Lily wandered. Maybe a neighbor misunderstood. Maybe Paula panicked and took her somewhere safe. But a notebook of routines is not panic. A baby blanket with another child's name is not confusion. A shelf of comfort objects collected like tools is not an accident. It meant Lily had been handled. Not harmed on impulse, not seized in rage, but managed. Paced. Directed. Kept calm while adults decided what to do with her. That understanding didn't arrive as a single dramatic moment. It arrived in small waves that kept coming back. In the hotel room, Clara sat on the carpet with her back against the bed frame and called Lily's voicemail just to hear the automated greeting. She did it until her phone battery died, then plugged it in and did it again. Ethan tried to help the way he always had, by trying to fix the world through force. He demanded meetings. He argued with supervisors. He threatened lawsuits against the agency. He called the news station twice and asked why they weren't covering the storage unit evidence. Clara watched him from the side as if he were someone else's father, because a truth had settled into her that she could not unlearn. If Lily had been coached to leave quietly, then Lily had been coached by someone who spent days inside her home. Someone who watched Clara's habits. Someone who knew when Clara was most tired. Someone who learned what Lily responded to. Clara stopped sleeping entirely after that. When she closed her eyes, she saw Paula's hands turning the pages of a picture book, slow and patient. When she opened them, she saw the refrigerator calendar, the neat thank you note, the way gratitude had been used like a signature. On day 27, Mitchell called Clara back to the precinct. "We have a hit from the notebook," Mitchell said. "One of the listed schools. A former caregiver case. Different state. The girl was recovered. Recovered." Clara clung to the word the way drowning people cling to driftwood. Mitchell led Clara into a briefing room where a man in a plain suit waited. He introduced himself as Special Agent Adrian Cole. He spoke with the dry clarity of someone trained to remove emotion from a room without seeming cruel. "Your case aligns with a series we've been tracking," Cole said. "The pattern is recruitment through childcare channels, short-term embedding, removal time to parental absence, then rapid relocation." Clara listened as if she were outside her own body. "Why?" she asked. The question came out thin. "What do they want with children?" Cole didn't offer a satisfying answer, because there wasn't one. "Control," he said. "Money sometimes. Custody disputes sometimes. Trafficking is a possibility, but we don't jump to conclusions without evidence. In recovered cases, the children were kept under an assumed identity, moved between adults who presented as family. It's adaptable." Mitchell watched Clara carefully as Cole spoke, as if looking for the moment Clara might break. Clara didn't break. She felt herself harden. That was the final turning of the knife. The possibility that Lily was alive somewhere, being taught a new name, being praised for being good, being told a story that explained why Mommy wasn't coming. Clara asked for the recovered case file. They couldn't give her everything, but Mitchell let her see enough. A girl 5 years old found 14 months after she vanished. Living in a rented house with 2 adults who claimed she was their niece. The girl had been clean, fed, quiet. She answered to a different name. She had flinched when strangers raised their voices. She had asked permission to use the bathroom. It wasn't a rescue story. It was a damage report. Clara read it with her hands shaking, then set the pages down and stared at her own reflection in the polished table surface. Her face looked older than it had a month ago. Her eyes looked like they belonged to someone who no longer believed in ordinary safety. Before she left the precinct that day, Mitchell stopped her in the hallway. "I need you to hear me," Mitchell said. "This kind of case tries to turn parents against themselves. Shame is fuel. It eats time. Don't give it that." Clara nodded, but shame wasn't something you could put down like a coat. It was welded to her. It lived in the minute she had unclasped Lily's fingers and walked out of the apartment. It lived in every moment she had felt relief that Lily sounded quiet on the phone. It lived in the heart emoji she had sent back. On day 32, the agency's offices were raided again. Not because of new proof, but because someone finally admitted what they had tried to avoid saying out loud. The agency had holes. Someone had ignored warnings. A background check had been verified without true verification. A staff member had signed off on a reference call they never made. Clara heard those details secondhand through Mitchell, and something inside her went cold. It wasn't only that monsters existed. It was that they could be accommodated by laziness, by bureaucracy, by the way people wanted to believe paperwork meant safety. In early February, when rain turned the streets into mirrors, a tip came in from a gas station clerk 200 miles away. A woman and a man, a little girl with yellow boots. The clerk had remembered because the boots were bright and wrong against the gray day. The clerk had remembered because the girl kept one hand on a stuffed rabbit, gripping it like a handle. Mitchell called Clara immediately. Clara drove with Ethan to the station, heart punching against her ribs, the road wet and endless. She stared out the windshield, imagining Lily's face in every passing car window. She tried not to hope too hard, because hope had become a weapon too. It lifted you up and then dropped you. The surveillance footage existed. It was the right van shape. It was the right man's height. It was a little girl, small and quiet, moving beside them. But the camera angle was wrong. The girl's face was turned away. The resolution dissolved detail into pixels. The boots might have been Lily's, or might have been any child's. Mitchell watched the clip with Clara anyway. Clara leaned forward until her nose almost touched the screen. She stared at the child's posture, the slight inward curve of the shoulders, the way the rabbit was held tight, the way the head tilted toward the woman's voice. Her mind screamed, "That's her." Her mind also whispered, "You want it to be." Mitchell paused the video on a frame where the girl's profile showed for a fraction of a second. It wasn't enough. Clara sat back, chest hollow. Ethan hit the wall with his fist once, hard, then pressed his forehead against it like he was trying to keep himself from falling. They sent the footage to a lab. They tracked the van to another highway camera. Then to another. Then it vanished again, the world swallowing it like a tide. That night, Clara returned to her apartment for the first time in over a week. The hallway smelled the same. The nightlight still glowed blue. The apartment looked orderly because the police had left it that way. No shoes in the middle of the floor, no toy basket, no evidence of Lily except what Clara had hidden from herself. Clara walked into Lily's room and sat on the edge of the made bed. She did not cry at first. She simply looked. Then she spoke, softly, into the quiet. "I'm here," she said. "I'm here. I'm not leaving again." The promise sounded absurd in a room that could not answer her. She opened the closet and took out Lily's jackets, held them to her face, breathed the faint smell of detergent and child skin that still clung to fabric. She folded each piece carefully and put it back, because moving things felt like control. In the living room, she noticed something she hadn't noticed before. The dish towel on the coffee table. It had been clean. Crisp. Perfect. Now she lifted it and found, underneath, a small indentation in the wood. A ring-shaped mark, the kind left by a mug. It was faint, but it was there. Clara remembered Paula's habit, tea in the afternoon. A mug held with both hands like comfort. Clara walked to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and pulled out Clara's own mugs. She set them on the counter. None matched the ring's diameter exactly. Mitchell had told her not to chase ghosts. But Clara's mind had learned to hunt. She checked the trash, the recycling, the cupboards. Nothing. Then she remembered the tote bag Paula carried on interview day, the children's book peeking out. A deliberate signal. A costume piece. Clara stood at the counter and realized with a cold clarity that Paula had brought her own things into this home and removed them again, leaving almost nothing behind. Almost nothing. Except a note that said thank you. Except a cleaned room that felt like a lie. Except a child's hair caught in Velcro in a van seat seam. Clara sat at the kitchen table and opened her laptop. She began to write a document titled LILYEverything. Not a routine. Not a schedule. Everything. Every sentence Paula had said, every tone shift, every moment Lily sounded flat, every missed call, every discomfort Clara had pushed down. She wrote until dawn, not because she believed her words could catch Paula, but because writing was the only way to keep Lily fully alive in her mind, fully detailed, impossible to blur. In the weeks that followed, the case did not conclude neatly. There was no triumphant arrest on a doorstep. No dramatic confession. No closure served warm. There were only developments that arrived like small stones thrown against a window. A false identity traced to a forged passport application. A bank withdrawal in another city. A sighting that couldn't be confirmed. A truck stop camera that caught a white van for 3 seconds. Mitchell called when she could. Sometimes she called just to say, "Nothing new today." Sometimes she called with questions that sounded like strange riddles. Did Paula ever mention a childhood town? Did she ever use a phrase that stood out? Did she ever talk about religion or charity or family? Clara answered everything. And then she learned another truth that no missing child poster could convey. When a child is stolen quietly, the world grows used to the silence. Neighbors stop asking. The news moves on. People avoid your eyes because your grief is contagious. Friends offer help once, twice, and then their lives reclaim them. Clara's life did not reclaim her. Clara kept Lily's phone line active. She left a voicemail message every Sunday night, her voice steady, careful, like a bedtime story. "Hi, Lily. It's Mommy. I'm thinking of you. I love you. If you ever hear this, you don't have to be good. You just have to be you. I'm still here." She said the same words every week because she wanted Lily, wherever she was, to hear consistency, to hear that her mother hadn't vanished in the way Paula had made her vanish. In late March, Mitchell came to Clara's door in person. Clara opened it and saw Mitchell's face before she saw the envelope in her hand. Mitchell didn't smile. She didn't soften the moment with false hope. "We found a photo," Mitchell said. "We don't know when it was taken. We don't know where, but I need you to see it." Clara's hands went numb again, the same numbness from the viewing room. She took the envelope and pulled out the print with slow care, as if speed could break it. It was a candid shot, slightly blurred, a woman's shoulder in the foreground, a child in the middle distance. The child was turned half away, hair tucked behind an ear. The lighting was harsh, like fluorescent store lights, but the child's hand was visible, a small hand gripping a rabbit with one bent ear. Clara stared until her eyes watered. The face was not clear enough to prove. The rabbit was. Mitchell watched her. "We can't use this as confirmation," she said. "But it's consistent. Consistent." Clara nodded once, because nodding was all she could do without falling apart. After Mitchell left, Clara sat on the floor of Lily's room with the photo in her lap. The apartment was quiet, but not the scrubbed, staged quiet from that first night. This quiet belonged to Clara now. She let it exist without trying to fill it. She looked at the photo again. The rabbit meant Lily was still being managed, still being kept calm, still being moved. Clara imagined Lily older, taller, learning to hide her real name behind a new one, learning to answer quickly, learning to smile when adults watched. The thought made Clara's stomach twist. Then she imagined something else. A day, months or years from now, when Lily hears her mother's voice somewhere, on a voicemail, on a television plea, in a memory that refuses to die, and recognizes it not as noise, but as a tether. Not a guarantee, a tether. Clara pressed the photo to her chest and whispered into the empty room, not for comfort, but for truth. "Hold on," she said. "Hold on to yourself." Outside, the city kept moving. People hurried under umbrellas. Lights changed. Elevators rose and fell. Inside, Clara kept the nightlight plugged in. Not because she believed in symbols, but because if Lily ever came back through that door, older, quieter, damaged in ways Clara could not predict, Clara wanted the first thing Lily saw to be something familiar. A small blue crescent on the floor. A sign that, in one place on Earth, her mother had never stopped waiting. "Before you go, I'd like to hear from you. What do you think really happened here? And what detail stayed with you the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read them and they matter. If you want more true cases told in a calm, documentary style, subscribe to Midnight Fatal Cases and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. Take care of yourself tonight, and I'll see you in the next case.